Part 1. It's wild how easy it is to convince yourself everything's fine when deep down, you know it isn't. Now, looking back, I realized my gut had been shouting at me for months before the wedding, warning me that something between my fiancée Holly and my best friend Kylan wasn't right. But honestly, I was too buried to deal with it. Work at the software consultancy demanded every ounce of focus, wedding planning chewed up what little energy I had left, and Holly's parents, Richard and Marjorie Chambers, seemed to always want more from me. There were times, sure, when jealousy flared up, like catching Holly and Kylan tucked away in the corner, laughing a little too easily, or noticing the way his eyes lingered on her. But I told myself it was just wedding stress, that I was reading too much into things. My days were swallowed by 12-hour shifts and a tidal wave of errands, all thanks to a wedding growing more massive and expensive by the week. My parents loved me, but they didn't have the money or the know-how to help with all the things Holly and her mom insisted on. Every day, it felt like I was spinning 100 plates and couldn't let a single one drop. Yet the warning signs were there. Holly and Kylan messaged each other way more often than a bride and best man should. I'd catch them grinning at their phones, trading inside jokes I was never letting on. If I asked, "What's so funny?" I'd get a lazy shrug or some brush off about a meme or a joke I wouldn't get. It stung, but I'd known Kylan since freshman year. We were as tight as brothers, had each other's backs through everything. I kept telling myself, he's my best man, he wouldn't cross the line. He's got me. Holly's world was different. Her family was old money, with Richard Chambers tied up in local politics and Marjorie floating through every charity gala like she owned the place. When I proposed, they didn't exactly celebrate, but they didn't say no either. Instead, they made sure I knew their name carried weight. "We'll split the cost 50-50, her parents announced, but suddenly we needed a country club venue, gold-plated centerpieces, a full-string quartet, and a guest list pushing 300. My dad, who taught middle school before retiring, and my mom, a nurse about to step back from the hospital, had to tap into their savings to cover our share. Every time I tried to set limits, Holly's mom would swoop in with, "We're the Chambers. We don't cut corners. You want your fiancée to look cheap on her wedding day." Holly always waved me off. "Let them have their fun. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing," she'd say, but it sounded more like a warning than reassurance. A week before the big day, Kylan strolled up with that easy grin and said he'd handle all the hotel arrangements for out-of-towners. "You've got your hands full. Let me take this one," he said, waving his phone at me. For a second, it felt like college again, letting him pick up the slack, trusting him like always. The night before the wedding, everyone met for a rehearsal dinner at the venue. Holly, in a dress so pale it may as well have been white, floated between her relatives. Most of them looked straight through me. My own parents stuck close together, clearly out of place among the wealth and the small talk. Kylan sent a few thumbs-ups my way from across the crowded room, but didn't really hang out much. After the run-through, we headed to the lounge for drinks. Everyone seemed in good spirits, at least at first. Then I noticed Holly was gone. My calls went straight to voicemail. When I asked, one of the bridesmaids said Holly was probably just overwhelmed and needed a breather. I shrugged it off. Maybe she just wanted some air. But as time crawled by, I realized Kylan was missing too. At first, I tried to talk myself down. Maybe he ran out to grab more drinks or check on a late guest. But something gnawed at me. 30 minutes ticked by. Then an hour. My nerves kicked in. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through social media, looking for any sign of either of them. That's when I found it. A brief Instagram story Holly must have uploaded by accident and deleted seconds later, but not before I saw it. In that flash of video, I spotted the patterned carpet of a hotel hallway and a door number half-cropped by the camera. It definitely wasn't the venue we just left. This was a different hotel. My hands went cold. Suddenly, all those nagging doubts I'd shoved aside hit me hard. I needed answers. So, I grabbed my jacket and keys and drove toward the hotel district, mind spinning with excuses. Maybe she was just helping a friend. Maybe Kylan was running an errand for her. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I didn't know what room Kylan had booked for the guests, but when I reached one of the boutique hotels nearby, I spotted his car parked by the entrance. That settled it. Inside, I headed for the elevator, taking it straight to the 8th floor, scanning the door numbers as I walked down the plush hallway, searching for that familiar detail from Holly's deleted post. Part 2. I remembered a flash from Holly's Instagram story, room 847. My feet carried me quietly down the corridor, the numbers ticking past, 843, 844, 845, 846. Each step made the hush seem heavier, the light overhead uncomfortably harsh, like it was exposing me before I even knew the truth. I didn't want to burst in and demand answers, not yet. I needed something undeniable, some kind of evidence, so I'd never doubt myself later. Heart thudding, I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. No voices, no movement. I tried the handle, expecting it to be locked, but it gave slightly. Not bolted, just secured with the usual electronic lock. Months earlier, Kylan had handed me a master key card, laughing about wedding emergencies, in case the guests locked themselves out. I fished it out, barely believing my own luck, and slipped it into the slot. The LED blinked green. With a small click, the door yielded. The irony burned. He'd armed me with the very thing that would wreck them. Inside, the room was dim, lit only by a couple of bedside lamps throwing soft shadows across the furniture. The air felt heavy, thick with secrets. Voices drifted from the far side of the bed, just quiet enough to be unmistakably private. I edged forward, every nerve wired tight, and saw them. Holly sprawled sideways on the big hotel bed, hair tangled, with Kylan leaning close beside her. I caught a fragment of their conversation, a low laugh, her hand brushing his arm, his voice promising, "Don't worry, no one will ever know." That laugh hit me like a slap. My whole body tensed, knuckles clenching. I wanted to storm in, tear him away from her, make them face me right then. But a colder, sharper instinct pushed back. Don't give them that satisfaction. Get proof. I fumbled for my phone, switched to video mode, and steadied my trembling hands. If I was going to have to relive this moment, so would they. I recorded a few seconds, capturing every incriminating detail, the way Holly gazed at him, the easy comfort in their posture, the date and time at the edge of the screen. Their betrayal was burned into pixels. They had no idea I was even there. I caught Kylan murmuring, "We're safe. No one will catch us," and Holly's soft giggle in response. The camera caught it all. The anger in me coiled tighter, but I forced myself to keep quiet, repeating in my mind, "Not now. Wait. Let them think you're clueless." With all the evidence I needed, I backed out as quietly as I'd entered, filming my retreat so every detail would be clear. As I pulled the door shut behind me, I was already halfway down the hall, breath ragged. The elevator took forever. Outside, the air was biting cold and snapped me awake like a slap. My heart hammered, rage simmering under my skin. That phone in my hand was suddenly the most dangerous thing I owned, a loaded weapon that could shatter everything tomorrow. I let the night air settle my nerves for a few minutes, then stumbled to my car and just drove. I didn't have anywhere to be. I wound up at some rundown 24-hour diner, slipping into a corner booth, hunched over my phone with a cup of weak coffee. Watching that footage made the truth real, no more doubts. In that greasy booth, anger twisted into resolve. If they were willing to embarrass me like this, they could deal with their own shame too. Sleep never came. By 5 in the morning, I'd powered through 3 coffees and filled pages with notes, planning exactly how I'd control the wedding day. Our venue had state-of-the-art AV, big screens, wireless microphones, whatever I needed. The plan was to run a slideshow with cute baby photos, embarrassing teen years, snapshots of Holly and me at the beach, standard stuff. But now, I knew I could hijack the system in seconds. A thumb drive, a phone, anything could swap in new footage. I wrestled for a minute with guilt. Was I really going to do this? Wasn't that too far? But then the memory of Holly and Kylan tangled together erased any hesitation. Actions have consequences. They'd learned that lesson in front of everyone. Around 6:30 a.m., I finally went back to the apartment Holly and I'd shared for close to a year. Unsurprisingly, the place was empty. If she was trying to keep up the act, maybe she'd slipped in at dawn, planning to say she'd stayed with her bridesmaids or needed some air. But when I opened the door, it looked exactly as we'd left it. Living room in perfect order, bedroom untouched. Her phone charger still plugged in beside the bed, the ring box I'd given her resting on the dresser, every detail a silent reminder of how fast everything was crumbling. That same mix of heartbreak and fury welled up. I silenced my phone, tried to rest, but my mind kept spinning. Around 9, the lock beeped. Holly's home at last. I stayed perfectly still, pretending to sleep, listening as she slipped in as quietly as she could, like she hoped not to wake me or be forced to explain where she'd been. She didn't even glance into the bedroom, tiptoeing past as if she could just keep up the lie a little longer. Part 3. I listened from the bedroom as Holly quietly slipped into the guest room, probably fixing up her appearance before facing me. 30 minutes passed before I wandered out, putting on a convincing stretch and a casual yawn. acting like nothing about this morning was out of the ordinary. She sat perched at the kitchen island, hair neat, dressed down in an old t-shirt and sweatpants. She looked up with a tired, almost forced smile. "Morning, babe," she called softly. "Crashed at a friend's last night. Rehearsal dinner got a little wild. You know how it goes." I matched her energy, gave a small smile, and replied, "Must have been a wild party. I'm just glad you're back in one piece." Inside, my mind replayed every moment of last night's footage, but on the outside, I was cool and steady. I gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, holding back every urge to explode. Her eyes searched mine for any hint of suspicion, but all she found was a bland, sleepy acceptance. I wanted her to relax, to really believe she'd fooled me. Only a few more hours, then everything would change. The wedding was set for noon at the high-end Wentworth country estate, chosen for its grandeur. My parents showed up around 10, faces full of excitement, completely oblivious to the storm swirling just beneath the surface. I hugged them, feeling oddly hollow. My mom looked radiant in her pastel dress, and my dad patted me on the back, probably remembering the shy kid I used to be. Faking a smile, I told them I needed to handle some last-minute technical stuff for the ceremony, promising I'd see them soon. While Holly and her bridesmaids fussed over makeup and hair in their suite, Kylan was probably with the groomsmen. I had no intention of seeking him out, let him think I was none the wiser. I slipped away to the AV booth overlooking the ballroom, where Tony the technician was double-checking the projector and microphones. "You must be Daniel, the groom," he said to a coworker. "Kylan said you've got something special you want to show?" I pulled a flash drive from my jacket, offering a lopsided grin. "Yep, I'm switching it up. Instead of the usual sappy slideshow, I've got a real surprise. Something a bit more dramatic." Tony laughed. "Hey, it's your wedding. Just let me know when to swap the video out." I tapped the drive. "When I say roll it, you'll know. Trust me, you can't miss it." A flicker of guilt caught in my throat, but I swallowed it down. They'd made their bed. By 11:50, the grand ballroom was packed, sunlight filtering through massive windows, crystal chandeliers sparkling above. Guests were buzzing with excitement, snapping photos, trading greetings. The bride's side dominated, with the chamber's elite friends, politicians, business partners, and relatives filling row after row. My side, close friends, colleagues, and family, felt like a small outpost in enemy territory. Tradition called for me to wait at the altar beside the officiant, but at 11:55, the officiant, a longtime friend of Richard Chambers, was nowhere to be found. Richard himself kept checking his watch, visibly annoyed. My mom squirmed anxiously in her seat, while Marjorie, regal in a sharp lilac suit, leaned in to whisper to a neighbor, "Where is Daniel? Is he always this unreliable?" She never missed a shot to criticize me. Somewhere in the back, Holly would have been on the verge of panic, but I wasn't about to watch her scramble. I hid on the second-floor balcony, behind heavy curtains, eyes sweeping the room, feeling the tension spike with every minute. By 12:01, the doors should have opened for Holly's grand entrance. Instead, the room simmered with confusion and hushed concern. It was the moment I'd been waiting for, the perfect time to drop the hammer. I made my way back to the AV booth, where Tony was nervously tapping buttons. "We're running a couple minutes behind. Everything okay?" he whispered. I nodded, jaw tight. "Yeah, I'm good. Let's do this." My heart hammered so hard I wondered if the microphone would pick it up. But adrenaline and righteous anger steadied me. I pressed the mic switch, sending my voice booming through the hall. "Good afternoon, everyone." The chatter died instantly. Heads turned, searching for me at the altar, but I wasn't there. Murmurs of confusion swept across the ballroom. Richard stood, scanning the room, while Marjorie's hand flew to her chest in theatrical dismay. The officiant fumbled for his notes. I took a breath and let the words drop. "There won't be a wedding today." Gasps spread like wildfire. Guests twisted in their seats, craning their necks, some standing to get a better view. Somewhere, Holly must have been unraveling in the bridal suite. Tony glanced over at me, eyes wide. I gave a subtle nod, time for the show. Before panic could really set in, I spoke again. "Before anyone gets upset, I want you all to see something." I signaled Tony, and he slotted my flash drive into the projector. The looping slideshow of me and Holly's happiest moments faded out, the screen turning black for a long, heavy second. Then, without warning, the video I'd shot last night filled the screen, grainy but clear. Holly and Kylan, tangled up in hotel sheets, voices unmistakable, date and time glowing in the corner. I'd edited it just enough to zoom in on the clock, highlighting exactly when this betrayal took place, hours before our wedding. A chorus of shocked cries and gasps broke out. Disbelief swept the crowd, then anger. Some people clapped hands over their mouths. An elderly aunt shrieked, "Oh my God." Richard Chambers nearly fell over trying to stand. Marjorie looked ready to faint. And somewhere, Kylan must have realized, far too late, what was happening. Part 4. Even from inside the booth, I could hear the uproar ripple through the ballroom. Frantic footsteps pounded the aisles, voices rising in panic. The officiant stood frozen in front of the projection, helpless and wide-eyed. One of the bridesmaids let out a piercing wail. Off to the left, someone shouted, "Turn that off." I made a split-second decision to let the footage play for a solid 10 seconds, just enough for every guest to process the timestamp, the unmistakable scene, and the reality that my fiancée and my best friend were center stage. Only then did I cut the video, leaving the screen black, but chaos rolling on. All around, people were shouting and gasping. Tony looked at me, pale as chalk. "Dude, what did you just do?" He whispered, but I was already stepping away from the mic. That's when I saw Holly, standing in the ballroom's entryway in her wedding gown, hair perfect, makeup immaculate, but her face twisted in horror. She barely looked human, fear radiating from every line. "Turn it off," she screamed, her voice wild with desperation. She must have missed most of the video, but the stunned faces told her everything. Marjorie barreled toward the projector, demanding answers, jabbing her finger at staff. "Who let this happen?" she spat, while Tony tried to disappear into the shadows. Richard Chambers, red-faced and furious, stormed the center aisle, bellowing, "Where's Daniel?" He spun around, scanning the crowd, as guests pulled away from him, not sure whether to get involved or to leave. My mother sobbed quietly in her seat. My dad stood at her side, his eyes flashing as he stared down the chambers, confused and angry. Some of Holly's family hunched down, trying to shrink from the scene, worried about the scandal staining them. A woman near the front fainted, her neighbor frantically fanning her and calling for water. The whole place had dissolved into pandemonium. Holly's gaze swept the room, desperate and wild, her gown's long train dragging behind her like an anchor. Then her eyes found me, standing at the second-floor balcony. I stepped forward, hands gripping the railing. As the crowd caught sight of me, the room went quiet, every face turned my way like an audience watching a ringleader at a circus gone off the rails. "What are you doing?" Holly shrieked, her voice strained and breaking. "You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony, you coward." The irony of her protest hit me. I almost laughed. Even now, she clung to the dumb superstitions about bad luck. "There's not going to be a wedding," I called down, voice echoing across the stunned guests. "You made sure of that last night." She froze, glassy tears gathering in her eyes. "Daniel, please, just talk to me." "Not like this, not in front of everyone," her voice cracked. "Why not?" I shot back. "You didn't mind sneaking around with my best friend. Everyone here deserves to know why they wasted their time and money." Murmurs swept the crowd. Holly's mom, face blazing red, jabbed a finger at me. "You just ruined our family's name in front of everyone who matters. Don't you see how humiliating this is?" I barked out a harsh laugh. "Humiliating?" "Holly and Kylan humiliated me. I'm just returning the favor." Suddenly, a disturbance broke at the front. Kylan staggered into the open, jacket half on, tie loose, hair a mess. "Daniel, man, please, let's talk," he stammered, trying to approach. I bolted down the staircase, pushing into the main aisle, fist clenched so tight my arms shook. Holly darted in front of me, her dress nearly tripping her, but I pushed past the fabric, ignoring her cries. Kylan held up a hand, pleading, "It's not what you think." She was upset. It just happened. I didn't want to hear another word. The images of them in bed seared my mind. I swung, hand connecting hard with his cheek, a sharp, ringing slap that echoed through the silent room. Kylan crumpled to the carpet with a groan, the whole crowd gasping. Holly screamed, "Stop. You're hurting him." She dropped to her knees beside him, wedding dress sprawling around her. Marjorie let out a strangled sob. "You're a monster. Attacking him in public." I pointed at Kylan, who struggled to sit up. "That's the monster, the one who helped your daughter humiliate me." A heavy, stunned silence fell. Holly, face streaked with tears, stared at me, pleading, "Daniel, I'm sorry. Please, just stop." I turned to the crowd, spotting half a dozen phones recording every second. "Thanks for coming, everyone," I said with biting politeness. "No wedding today. If you wanted a fairy tale, you get the truth instead." Then I stormed out, shoving open the ballroom doors, my parents trailing behind, my mom still in shock, my dad stony-faced. I didn't look back, even when Holly wailed my name. Driving home, adrenaline still surging, my mother asked softly, "Daniel, was it real? Was all of that really true?" Once we reached the apartment, I showed her the raw, time-stamped video. She blanched, then hugged me, whispering, "I'm so sorry." My father, hand heavy on my shoulder, said, "You did what you had to do. We lost a lot, but I'd rather lose money than see you live a lie." I thanked them both and urged them to go home and rest. Alone in the quiet, guilt flickered through me for blowing everything up so spectacularly. My parents had sacrificed so much for this day, only to watch it crash and burn. But quietly calling things off would never have given me peace. I needed the truth out, no matter the cost. Part 5. That same night, I started packing up all of Holly's things, every bit of it. I pulled her dresses and jackets from the closet, boxed up the endless rows of shoes, every bit of makeup, even those little knickknacks she insisted on buying for the apartment. I labeled each box in bold black marker, making sure nothing got left behind. By midnight, I'd rented a U-Haul, stacked everything inside, and drove it through empty streets to the Chambers' gated estate, a monument to their inflated sense of importance. The security guard recognized me from countless holiday visits. When he noticed the moving trailer, he leaned out of the booth. "Everything all right, Mr. Harper?" "Just dropping off Holly's stuff," I replied, voice flat. He nodded and buzzed me through. I parked beneath the giant stone columns at their front door, their mansion looming over me in the dark. My anger had cooled to a dull ache, replaced by a strange sense of peace. I unloaded the boxes onto their front steps, rang the brass knocker once, and walked away without looking back. A light flickered on inside as I pulled away, let them find her things and make whatever story they wanted. A few hours later, pounding at my apartment door jolted me awake. For a moment, I thought it was a bad dream, but then Richard Chambers' familiar bellow echoed through the hallway. I threw on a t-shirt and opened up to see Holly, Richard, and Marjorie all glowering at me. Holly's eyes were swollen, her hair a mess, and both her parents were dressed for battle, Richard in a suit, Marjorie clutching a sheaf of paperwork. Richard wasted no time. "We need to discuss compensation," he announced coldly. I nearly laughed. "Compensation for what?" Marjorie shoved the stack of invoices at me. "The wedding, obviously. We lost tens of thousands on the venue, catering, hotels. You owe us." I stared at the itemized list, feeling a wave of disbelief. "You do remember your daughter cheated on me with my best friend the night before our wedding, right? Maybe blame them for the disaster." Holly's face twisted. "You had no right to ambush me like that. You could have just called things off quietly." "I had every right," I snapped, my anger returning. "You and Kylan humiliated me. I made sure everyone saw who you really are. Don't act shocked by the fallout." Richard puffed up, looming over me. "We paid for half that wedding. Your parents barely chipped in. You owe us at least 15 grand. I just shook my head in disbelief. "You think I'm paying for a wedding your daughter destroyed?" Marjorie's tone sharpened. "You humiliated us in front of people who matter, clients, donors, officials. We can't just let that go." I almost laughed at her audacity. "Let's not pretend. Marjorie, none of this would have happened if Holly had kept her vows." Holly recoiled. "Maybe if you'd been around more, cared about me." I cut her off, my patience gone. "Oh, so this is my fault now? Get out. I'm not giving you a cent." Richard glared. "Do you know who you're messing with? I have influence in this town." I met his stare. "And I have the video with Holly's face and that timestamp. Try anything, and I'll make sure everyone sees it. Let's see whose reputation survives that." He hesitated, jaw clenched. Holly tried one last plea. "Daniel, we had something once. Don't end it like this." "It was a mistake. It wasn't an accident," I said, voice hard. "You chose it. Now live with it. Get out." Richard's bravado faded as he realized they had no leverage. Marjorie gave a final, icy sniff. "You'll regret this." I shrugged. "Not nearly as much as I'd regret marrying into this family." They stormed off, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I leaned against it, the exhaustion hitting me at last. It was done. No fiancé, no wedding, no best friend. Just a strange sense of relief. Word spread quickly, some friends reached out in shock, others offered support. When I explained what happened, reactions ranged from horror to grudging respect. Some called it ruthless, others called it justice. I ignored Kylan's only message, "Man, I'm sorry, you gotta understand." He lost his job soon after, fired for dishonesty, which felt like poetic justice. My parents were upset about the wasted money, but mostly relieved I'd escaped disaster. Dad just said, "Better lost cash than lost dignity." I promised to make it right one day. The Chambers family did damage control, blaming my jealousy for the whole fiasco, but the guests knew the truth. Their reputation was toast. Holly faded from my life. Maybe she ended up with Kylan, maybe not. I didn't care. I found a cheaper apartment, buried myself in work, and began rebuilding, piece by piece. The pain faded, leaving only lessons in the memory of what I'd endured. But I kept a copy of that video, just in case anyone ever doubted what happened that night. The end.